When the Cleveland Browns took Shador Sanders in the 5th round of this year's NFL Draft, they had just accidentally created one of the weirdest quarterback rooms anyone has ever seen. It's not even just the Browns, though, that have accidentally created a weird quarterback room. I'm going to be going over 2 other teams that have done similar things this offseason. Without further ado, let's get right into the video. We have to get started on the Cleveland Browns because they are the inspiration of this video, and they have probably the strangest quarterback room I've ever seen. I think anyone has ever seen. We kinda all know the story of Deshaun Watson at this point. Dude balled out during his time in Houston in his 4 seasons, was one of the best and most likable quarterbacks in the NFL, then 54 or something like that. Allegations came out against him, really just hurt his profile, but he already requested a trade at that point. A year later, he's traded to the Browns, even though, these allegations are still out. He hasn't played in a full year. He won't play in the first 12 games of 2022, and ever just since then, he's not been good. I mean, you can just see it here for yourself. First 4 seasons with the Texans, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, and then he gets hit with the allegations. He sits out for a season, gets traded to the Browns, and he's one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL. And despite the fact that he's injury prone, he's one of the worst contracts in the NFL. He's one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL. He's one of the worst starting quarterbacks in the NFL, at least. And there are plenty better of options out there. For some reason, the Browns are still going to roll him out as QB1 for 2025. I do not understand why they have not given up on him yet. I thought when Jameis Winston took over last year and was balling out, I thought he was going to be the guy for the Browns for at least like the next year or something like that. I do not understand why Deshaun Watson is still the single caller for Cleveland. I mean, well, it's the Browns, so I guess it makes sense. And the QB2 is going to be Joe Flacco, and Browns fans love this guy, and honestly, he deserves to be QB1 over Deshaun Watson if you're asking me, and probably anyone else. I think dude actually is more deserving of QB1 than Deshaun Watson. But anyway, after 2018, his last season with Baltimore, his career was dying until he got a call from the Browns asking if he wanted to play with them in 2023 in like week 13 or whatever. And he starts a few games and he absolutely revitalizes his career. He revives his career in 2023, leads the Browns to a few game winning streak to end the season, gets him into the playoffs where they got smoked, but revived his career. He went to Indy in 2024, and since then, well, he got signed back by the Browns in the 2025 offseason, so we'll see what happens this season. After that, for QB3, it could literally be any 3 of these guys. Kenny Pickett, who won a Super Bowl with the Eagles last year and actually got Super Bowl snaps in the game last year. That is insane to think about, but he is currently the QB3, I would believe. Then they picked Oregon quarterback Dillon Gabriel in the 3rd round, and I think you could have gotten him a little later, but overall, not a bad pick. It's what they did after, though, in the draft. That made this a dumb move, or a boneheaded decision at least. Then they drafted Shador Sanders in the 5th round, which is what made Dillon Gabriel's selection a little weird. I think they drafted Shador out of complete desperation and overthinking, because there's no way you draft 2 quarterbacks in the same draft class unless you're the Redskins in 2012. And not only that, but how are you going to fit all of these quarterbacks into one quarterback group? You're going to have to cut at least one of them before the season begins. And Deion's probably going to force his way to let Shador be on the team. So it's probably going to be Dillon Gabriel or Kenny Pickett. But yeah, this is definitely the weirdest quarterback room I've ever seen. We now go over to Seattle, where we talk about the Seattle Seahawks. Their QB1 for next year is going to be Sam Darnold, who they signed during this free agency on a 1-year deal. And dude had a phenomenal 2024 season with the Vikings. Let's see if he can bounce back with Seattle, or if it was a 1-year wonder there. Hopefully it's not. I'm really rooting for him, but we will see. Sam Howell was going to be their QB2, however, just a few days ago, he got traded to the Vikings, which is kind of funny because that's where Sam Darnold came from, but I think Sam Howell could be an actual QB1 somewhere. If you remember that season with the Commanders, his touchdown-interception ratio was kind of iffy, but dude was balling out. It was those last few games that were really bad for him in 2023, and ever since then he's been a backup, but I think he could be a QB1 somewhere. Anyway, next quarterback. But the QB2 spot is going to be a battle between one of 2 quarterbacks, one of them being my freaking guy, Drew freaking Lock. I love him. That's why my YouTube channel name is Drew Lockburner, because that's my guy. But anyway, he was signed back to the Seahawks on April 16th, and hopefully that dude can finally ball out somewhere. He had a few games with the Giants where he balled out against the Colts, if you remember that game. But I'm just hoping Drew Lock does well and succeeds. That's my guy. That's my NFL sweetheart right there. The other quarterback battling for the QB2 spot is Jalen Milroe, who they drafted in the 3rd round from Alabama, and Milroe is definitely interesting. I remember him from college. He definitely had his good moments, if you remember 4th and 29 or something like that against Auburn. And then he definitely had his bad moments, like the Citrus Bowl this year against Michigan, among other things. But he's definitely an interesting prospect. He doesn't have a bad play style. From what I heard from the draft combine and the draft interviews, he was pretty solid, so I wouldn't be surprised if he earned the QB2 spot, but we will see. If they didn't trade Sam Howell last week, this QB room would definitely be way more interesting, but despite him not being there, I still think it's a pretty solid and a pretty unique 3-quarterback room. And then our third team is the New York Giants, and I'm going to be completely honest, I have no idea what this team is doing. Now, it was a very interesting discussion to begin with for the Giants entering this offseason because their QB1 at the time was Tommy DeVito, and there really wasn't a direction to go. Do you draft Cam Ward? Well, no, you can't because he's going number 1 overall. Do you draft Shedeur Sanders? Do you draft... I don't know, well, it's not a good quarterback draft class, so maybe you look for free agency for now, and that's what they did. So they go ahead and sign Jameis Winston to a 2-year, $8 million deal, and hey, it's not a terrible signing, and I'm honestly happy for Jameis Winston because he has all the ability and talents in the world to be a QB1 in his own place, and it looks like it's finally about to happen. I was so happy for him. But then the Giants, they continued to giant. They continued to be stupid. Just 4 days after signing Jameis Winston, they would sign Russell Wilson to a 1-year, $10.5 million deal. And at this point, I had no idea what they were doing. Why would you as a franchise... I've never seen a franchise do this in one offseason where they need a quarterback, so they go ahead and sign 2 veteran quarterbacks to battle it out. And Russell Wilson will most likely be the QB1 for this team, but it just doesn't make sense at all. And I was happy for Jameis Winston because, again, like I said, he was finally going to be the QB1 of his own team. Finally, after all these years, but then they decided to go ahead and get another veteran quarterback, making Jameis Winston and another unwanted, unneeded quarterback battle. This just doesn't make sense. I feel so bad for Jameis Winston. This dude is the last guy to deserve to be in all these quarterback battles. And for some reason, teams like the Saints and Browns and Giants think that guys like Andy Dalton and Deshaun Watson and Russell Wilson are better than him. I'm yapping a lot right now, but again, I don't know what the Giants are doing. I will say a quarterback room of Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston, and Tommy DeVito has to be one of the most memeable quarterback rooms in NFL history. To make matters even more complicated, the Giants would go ahead and trade up the draft and draft Jackson Dart 25th overall. And at this point, I have no idea what they're doing. At least if you want to draft a quarterback, at least draft him later on or draft him in like the top 3. But no, they decided to trade up and try to find their future franchise guy in an already stacked quarterback room. I just don't get it at all. I don't get what the Giants' plan is here. I don't know what they're trying to do. I think drafting Jackson Dart is only setting them back even more. They could have waited until maybe next year or 2 years down the line to find the franchise guy, but now they are stuck with another rookie quarterback that will most likely not be on the team in 2 years. A quarterback room of Russell Wilson, Jameis Winston, Jackson Dart, and Tommy DeVito. That is definitely one of the most unique and interesting quarterback rooms in NFL history, and certainly in today's NFL. What's interesting about a lot of these quarterback rooms is that I think a lot of these guys could be solid QB2s or QB3s on other teams, but they're stuck being QB4 or QB5. I mean, I think about the Cowboys. We lost Cooper Rush and Trey Lance in the offseason. Looks like we're not even picking up Trey Lance. And we could use any of these guys as a solid QB2. I mean, give us Jameis Winston. Give us, Tommy DeVito. Heck, give us Kenny Pickett, all right? None of those guys are horrible, in my opinion. I think they could be solid backup guys. I don't know if today's day in the NFL is just way too stacked at quarterback, or these teams are just stacking up at the position. I have no idea what's going on, but it definitely is interesting. That's it for the video, y'all. Hope y'all like it. Hope y'all subscribe. Not going to force you to, but anyway, there's a guy out there. His name is Jesus Christ, and he absolutely loves you. And goodbye.